I'm Naomi, the outsider in my family. From the day I was born, I sensed I was a disappointment to my father. He had hoped for a son, and when the doctor announced, "It's a girl," his expression fell. That moment defined our relationship. My older sister, Sarah, was the shining star, intelligent, gifted, and adored by our parents. Me, I was just an afterthought. Our home was filled with praise for Sarah's accomplishments, while my own attempts went unnoticed. Did you hear? Sarah got another A on her math test. Look at the amazing painting Sarah made. Meanwhile, my report cards were met with indifference, and my crayon drawings ended up in the trash. As I grew, I became independent, preparing my own meals, doing my laundry, and handling homework on my own. It wasn't perfect, but it built my resilience. At 12, I stumbled upon something that would change my life. Hungry after school and with no one around to prepare a snack, I decided to bake cookies. To my surprise, they turned out great. The next day, I brought them to school. My classmate Jenny tasted one, her eyes wide with astonishment. "Naomi, these are incredible. Did your mom make them?" I smiled proudly. "No, I did." Word spread fast, and soon everyone was asking for more. For the first time, I felt seen. I had found something I was good at, something that made others notice me. Thrilled, I rushed home. "Mom, Dad, guess what? I baked cookies and everyone at school loved them." Mom barely glanced up from her magazine. "That's nice, dear. Just make sure to clean the kitchen." Dad frowned. "Cookies, Naomi, you should be focusing on your studies, not wasting time in the kitchen." My heart sank, but I refused to let their lack of excitement kill my enthusiasm. I had discovered my passion, and I wasn't going to let it go. As time went on, the gap between Sarah and me grew. Sarah graduated with honors and went to a prestigious college. Our parents were overjoyed, while I stayed in high school with decent grades but a love for baking. I began baking cakes, pies, and cookies every weekend. Neighbors started placing orders, and soon I had my own small business. One day, Mrs. Rodriguez, a neighbor, tasted my chocolate cake. "Naomi, darling, this is divine. You have a real talent." "Thank you. I'm thinking of going to culinary school after graduation." Her face lit up. "That's wonderful. You'd be fantastic at it." But when I shared this dream with my parents, their reactions couldn't have been more discouraging. Mom's face dropped. "Culinary school. That's just cooking." Dad slammed his fist on the table. "No daughter of mine is going to waste her life in a kitchen." "But Dad, I'm really good at it. People love my baking." I argued. He scoffed. "So what? Do you think you can make a living flipping burgers?" "Grow up, Naomi. The real world doesn't work like that." Mom added, "Think about your future. Look at Sarah. She's studying finance. That's a real career." Their words stung, but I wasn't ready to give up. I started selling baked goods at school fairs. The response was overwhelming. "Naomi, these cookies are unbelievable." My friend Jake said, "You should open a bakery." But at home, the dream quickly turned into a nightmare. "What's this?" Dad demanded, holding up a flyer for my bake sale. I swallowed hard. "It's for school. We're raising money for new computers." He narrowed his eyes. "Don't lie to me, Naomi. I know you've been selling your little treats. This ends now, do you hear me? You need to focus on real studies, not this hobby." "But Dad, I'm making good money." He interrupted. "Money? You call a few bucks for cookies real money? Do you know how much your sister makes at her internship?" "That's real money, Naomi." I bit my lip, holding back tears. "I just thought." "No, you didn't think." He cut me off. "This baking nonsense stops now. You're going to buckle down, get your grades up, and apply to proper colleges. No more cakes or cookies. Understand?" That night, I cried myself to sleep. My culinary dreams felt shattered, but I began researching business colleges. I had to follow their path, but deep down, I knew I'd find a way to pursue my passion. College passed in a blur of spreadsheets and reports. I tried convincing myself this was the right direction, but every time I passed a bakery or smelled fresh bread, my heart longed for more. After graduating, I landed a corporate job. My parents were ecstatic. I rented a tiny apartment, determined to stand on my own. But every day at my desk, crunching numbers, my soul withered. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I dug out my old recipe book, worn and stained with butter and flour. I baked a batch of cupcakes, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of mixing and baking. The next day, I brought them to work. My coworker Lisa tasted one. "Oh my God, Naomi, these are amazing. Where did you buy them?" I hesitated, then admitted, "Actually, I made them." Word spread quickly, and some people were asking if I could bake for their parties, weddings, and birthdays. I started small, but the orders kept coming. My apartment was filled with the scents of vanilla and chocolate. Then, at our company's anniversary party, the director himself approached me. "Naomi, I hear you're quite the baker. How about making the cake for our anniversary?" My heart raced. This was a huge opportunity, but also a huge risk. I couldn't say no. The day of the party arrived, and I wheeled in a massive cake decorated with the company logo. As I unveiled it, the room fell silent, then erupted in applause. "This is incredible," the director said. "Everyone, give it up for Naomi, our accounting wizard and apparently master pastry chef." His words stayed with me. Over the next few months, orders kept coming, and I realized I had a decision to make. I was juggling 2 full-time jobs. Accountant by day, baker by night. Something had to give. One sleepless night, surrounded by flour and orders, I made my choice. The next day, I handed in my resignation. "But why?" my supervisor stammered. "You're one of our best." I grinned, feeling lighter than I had in years. I had found my true calling. I rented a modest kitchen space and threw myself into my new venture. The experience was equal parts frightening and thrilling. There were nights I worked until dawn to meet orders, and days when I questioned whether I had made the biggest mistake of my life. But gradually, my little bakery started to thrive. I hired my first employee, then a second, and we expanded to a larger location. Word of my cakes and pastries spread throughout the city. I kept everything from my parents. To them, I was still climbing the corporate ladder, thriving as an accountant. I told myself I was waiting for the right time to tell them the truth. But deep down, I was terrified. Terrified of their disapproval, their anger, their rejection. As my bakery took off, I knew I needed to step up my marketing game. I immersed myself in social media, posting tantalizing photos of my creations each day. But I made sure to stay in the background. No selfies, no meet the baker posts. Just my cakes and pastries in all their glory. Despite my hesitation, the business flourished. I teamed up with a local delivery service to offer citywide shipping and launched a loyalty program to reward repeat customers. Then came the launch of Sweet Tooth Saturdays. Once a month, we'd offer free samples to anyone who stopped by. The first event had me on edge. What if no one showed up? Jess, one of my employees, reassured me. "Boss, have you tasted your own treats? They'll be lining up." By noon, we had a crowd spilling out onto the street. Watching the delight on people's faces with each bite filled me with a warmth I had never known. The bakery's popularity skyrocketed. Soon, we were catering for high-profile events, supplying desserts to upscale restaurants, and even shipping signature cookies nationwide. With success came money, more than I ever imagined from baking. My dad might say that my income had even surpassed my sister's salary as a bank executive. I began helping my parents financially, always claiming it was from my accounting job. When their roof needed repairs, I paid for it. When they talked about wanting to travel, I surprised them with tickets to Europe. "Oh, Naomi, you didn't have to," Mom said, her eyes twinkling with gratitude. Meanwhile, Sarah, my younger sister, still lived at home, spending her paycheck on luxury clothes and self-care. But none of it seemed to matter to my parents. In their eyes, Sarah was still the golden child. "Did you hear about Sarah's promotion?" Mom beamed. "She's vice president of her department at just 28. I forced a smile. "That's wonderful, Sarah. Congratulations." All the while, I was running a successful bakery, employing a dozen people, spreading joy to hundreds of customers every day. But to my parents, that meant nothing. Then one day, I was blindsided. Jess burst into the kitchen, waving an order form. "Boss, you're not going to believe this," she exclaimed. I wiped my hands on my apron. "What is it?" "We just got an order for a birthday cake. The delivery address is," she hesitated, "your parents' house." I froze. "Are you sure?" She handed me the form. It was true, my childhood address, my mother's name, and a note saying it was for her birthday. For a moment, I couldn't catch my breath. Then slowly an idea began to form. "Jess," I said, keeping my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "Clear my schedule. This cake is going to be my masterpiece." For the next week, I poured all my skill and love into that cake. 3 layers of my mom's favorite flavors, adorned with delicate sugar flowers. It was the best work I had ever done. As I added the finishing touches, I imagined my parents' reactions when they saw it, their pride when I revealed I was the one who had baked it. Finally, I would be able to share my true self with them. The day of the party arrived. I showed up early with a small gift to keep up the ruse. The house was filled with relatives I hadn't seen in years. "Naomi," Aunt Clara exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. "Still crunching numbers?" I nodded. "Yep, still at it." "I can't wait for my cake from the bakery," Aunt Clara added. Just then, the doorbell rang. Mom answered it, and there stood the delivery guy, holding the familiar Sweet Dreams bakery box. "Special delivery for the birthday girl," he said, smiling. The room fell silent as Mom carried the box to the dining table. When she lifted the lid, there was a collective gasp, followed by murmurs of admiration as the cake was revealed. I stood still, waiting for the right moment to speak, but before I could, Dad cleared his throat. "Before we dig in," he said, his voice unusually serious, "there's something we need to talk about." The room grew quiet. All eyes were on my parents, who now wore expressions of disdain. "We recently uncovered something," Mom said coldly, "a secret that's been hidden from us." I felt my heart drop. Was this really happening? Dad's voice dripped with contempt. "Can you believe this? Our Naomi here has been deceiving us. She's not an accountant. She's a pastry chef." He spat the words out like venom. The room buzzed with disbelief. I opened my mouth to explain, but no words came. This couldn't be real. Dad continued, his face flushed with fury. "We always dreamed our daughters would be successful, respectable members of society." He gestured towards Sarah. "Like your sister, vice president at her age. Now that's something to be proud of." Sarah shifted uncomfortably, but Mom's gaze turned to me. "We gave you every chance, Naomi. And this is how you repay us, by becoming a mere cook." The word mere stung deep. Didn't they understand? Couldn't they see what I had built? Suddenly, Dad stormed over to the table, grabbed the box, and with a single motion, flipped it upside down. My heart shattered as the cake splattered on the floor, a wreckage of icing and sponge. "We're not eating this," he sneered. "It's beneath us." Mom nodded in agreement. "Naomi, you've shown us you're unworthy of respect. You've disobeyed us for the last time." And then, in a voice colder than I had ever heard, Dad uttered the words that broke me. "We disown you. You're no longer our daughter." I couldn't breathe. I glanced around the room, hoping someone would stand up for me, but everyone avoided my gaze, uncomfortable and silent. Aunt Clara, who had welcomed me so warmly earlier, now whispered something to Uncle Joe. I always sensed something wasn't right about her, and it wasn't just me. Others noticed too. What was once a warm room now felt icy and full of hostility. "Leave," Mom said, her voice harsh and resolute. "Leave now and never speak to us again." I stood motionless, tears flooding down my face. How could they do this to me? How could they reject everything I had become? It was beyond cruel. "Didn't you hear your mother?" Dad barked. "Get out." Somehow, I mustered the strength to move. I walked toward the door, my vision blurred by tears. Just as my hand touched the handle, I heard Sarah's voice, tentative and unsure. "Mom, Dad, maybe we should." Her words were cut off by the door slamming behind me. I stumbled down the front steps, the same steps I climbed as a child. They felt different now, alien and unwelcoming. I reached my car, sat inside, and was engulfed by uncontrollable sobs. The dream I clung to for so long, of winning my parents' approval, shattered like the cake I'd made. It was gone, and I was lost. I don't know how long I cried, but as the sun dipped below the horizon, I realized one painful truth. I could never go back. The next few days were a blur. I moved through life like a shadow, barely eating, barely sleeping. The bakery ran smoothly, thanks to my amazing team, but I was just going through the motions. As the shock began to fade, I threw myself into work. If my family couldn't see my worth, then the world would. The bakery flourished. We expanded, opened new locations, even landed magazine features, TV appearances, and a cookbook deal. Success came in waves, and I rode each one with unyielding determination. I bought myself a beautiful apartment, finally, a place to call my own. 2 years after the fall-up, I met Jack. He was kind, supportive, and loved my cakes. A year later, he proposed, and I said yes. Our wedding was small but perfect. Surrounded by friends and chosen family, I realized I didn't miss my biological relatives at all. These people, my employees, my friends, my husband, were my true family. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The bakery thrived, Jack and I were happy, and I had everything I wanted. Except one thing, closure. That came one Tuesday afternoon, 5 years after the birthday party incident. I was reviewing plans for a new location when my phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? Naomi, my mother's voice came through, hesitant. Don't hang up, please. We need to talk. What followed was a flood of information. Sarah had lost her job at the bank. The bank had shut down. She was unemployed, and they needed help. But before I could process it, my father interrupted. You need to hire Sarah as the director of your bakery, he demanded. She has business experience. Let her run things and you can just bake. The absurdity hit me like a slap in the face. 5 years of silence and now this. A bitter laugh escaped me. Let me get this straight. You disown me, throw me out, and now you want me to hand over my business to Sarah. We gave you life, Dad shouted. We raised you. You owe us. Something inside me snapped. All the anger and pain I had buried for years erupted. I owe you nothing, I replied, my voice as cold as ice. You made your choice 5 years ago. I'm not your daughter anymore. Remember? I'm just a cook, and I'm certainly not helping you or Sarah. Goodbye. I ended the call, my hand trembling slightly. For a moment, I just sat there, letting the weight of it all sink in. Then a smile spread across my face. I was free. I owed them nothing. Just as I thought I'd closed that chapter, life threw me another twist. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, my phone rang again. Sarah's number. Hello? Naomi, Sarah said, her voice soft and uncertain. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. I took a deep breath. It's okay. What's going on? What followed was a conversation that changed everything. Sarah apologized profusely for our parents' behavior, both recently and 5 years ago. I had no idea they called you asking for a job, she said, her voice breaking. I would never have asked for that. I'm so sorry. A weight lifted from my chest. Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot. She explained how losing her job had been a wake-up call. I realized I had been living someone else's dream all this time, banking and finance. It was never what I wanted. It was always Mom and Dad's dream. I listened speechless as my sister opened up. Seeing you follow your passion, build your business, it inspired me. I've decided to change my life. I'm taking interior design courses. I want to create, to design beautiful spaces. I want to be true to myself like you've been. Tears welled up in my eyes. All these years I thought Sarah had it all figured out. I never knew she was struggling too. That's wonderful, Sarah, I managed. I'm happy for you. There was a pause. Then Sarah's voice came again, thick with emotion. I'm proud of you, Naomi. You stood up for yourself. You followed your dreams, despite everything. That's amazing. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. Years of hurt, anger, and longing for my sister came pouring out. We talked for hours, catching up on everything we had missed. As the conversation came to a close, Sarah hesitantly suggested, maybe we could meet up sometime just to talk, share news, support each other. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I'd like that, Sarah. I'd like that a lot. In the following months, Sarah and I met regularly. We shared coffee, pastries, and laughs over old memories. She was thriving in her interior design business, and I couldn't be prouder. As for our parents, we heard they had disowned Sarah too when she left banking. They told everyone that their daughters had disappointed them. One an ordinary cook, the other a frivolous decorator. But Sarah and I knew the truth. We were living our dreams. We had found our own paths to happiness. One day, while Sarah and I were chatting at my bakery, she looked around and then back at me with a smile. You know, she said, I think we turned out pretty great, all things considered. I laughed, feeling a warmth I hadn't known before. Yeah, I agreed. I think we did. As I watched Sarah sketch design ideas on a napkin, surrounded by the smell of fresh pastries and the chatter of happy customers, I felt content. This was my life, Messy, challenging, but sweet. I fought for my dreams, lost some battles, but ultimately I won. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stay stunned.